for us, our business journey fell straight on top of raising 2 kids. And I didn't want to be that father that was kind of like never there, that by the time they grew up, I was sitting on this huge pile of cash and just like, okay, guys, I'm ready to spend time with you. And all of a sudden they're like, see you, Dad. I didn't want to have that be the story of my life. The old school way of thinking was I'm going to work for the next 40 years and wait until I'm 60 or 65 and then basically retire. And then maybe, hopefully I've got 10 or 15 years worth of health to then do all the stuff that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And he said, rather than doing that, why don't you take these mini retirements all throughout your working life? Yes, there's a period of hard work in any business to get it up and running and off the ground. But if you think about what's the purpose of a business, it's yes, of course you need to make money, but the purpose of business is to give you a bigger life and not to suck the life out of you. So it's like, you can talk to me at any time, but it's on a Wednesday at 2:00. That's it. And so all my clients know that I'm accessible in that window of time, almost no matter where I am anywhere in the world. If you're not there yet, keep hustling. And if you get burnt, before you get burnt out, take a break, recharge, because it's a business is not just a sprint, it's not even a marathon, it's multiple ultra marathons. And so, you do need to take breaks. It might be just 3 days, 4 days where you're just going to go bush or you're just going to recharge the batteries or things like that. Otherwise, you can't just sustain yourself working, indefinitely. So we sat down and we basically planned out our life. So we're going to do 2 months work, 1 month off. And we've basically been doing that now for almost 2 decades.
I wanted to selfishly start on a topic that we've just been talking about, which is building a lifestyle business, something you do very, very well.
Yes.
I believe like a lot of founders are trapped in their business.
Yeah.
And then get to a stage where they're trying to squeeze in building a life around their business. And I guess I wanted to understand, like, at what point did you make a decision, like an intentional decision, that not only like did you want to build a lifestyle business, but you wanted to like bring your family along for the ride?
Yeah, sure. So I suppose that because I know there'll be people listening to this at different sort of like stages, I do want to maybe pre-frame what I'm going to say by saying that there's definitely the hard years where like for 8 years we were like worked pretty crazy. And I think it's like likening it to like a rocket ship getting off the ground, like 80% of the fuel is kind of burnt in that first like 2 minutes, right? And so for 8 years we worked really, really hard, laid the foundation, made a whole bunch of mistakes, did things that didn't work, made money, lost money. But we kind of got to a point where we had a business that was working. It wasn't massive, but it was like 4 or 5 staff. We were making profit and we were like, okay, this is awesome. And then I got home and my wife said, honey, we're pregnant. You're going to be a dad. And I was like, oh, shit. So, okay, what is this going to mean? And around the same time, so this is March 2027. Okay. And the month later, a book burst onto the scene called The 4-Hour Week by Tim Ferriss. And so I was like, okay, this sounds interesting. Read the book, and there's lots of stuff he talked about in the book, but one of the concepts was this idea of what he calls like mini retirements. So the old school way of thinking was I'm going to work for the next 40 years and wait until I'm 60 or 65 and then basically retire. And then maybe, hopefully I've got 10 or 15 years worth of health to then do all the stuff that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And he said, rather than doing that, why don't you take these mini retirements all throughout your working life, because you can't just live your life at the end, you've got to live your life along the way through. And so we thought, well, that sounds kind of cool. And he spoke about how to build a business that can start to run without you having to be there. So I went kind of deep down the rabbit hole of figuring out how to automate and systemize our business and how to hire staff that can do the core processes of our business. And over the next 6 months, we built somewhere between 150 to 200 core systems or standard operating procedures, SOPs. And that meant that our business could start to run without me and my wife having to be there every single day. And so when our son was born, everyone kind of told us, oh, you can't travel with your kids. You're going to be kind of like locked at home and stuff like that. And we said, screw that. We're going to kind of prove everyone wrong. And we're going to, go traveling with a 6-week-old baby. So we flew to LA and then went up to San Francisco, and then we kind of went up to Vancouver, and we did a whole bunch of things. But basically, we were away for 3 weeks. We came back, and I was like, well, that worked. Nothing kind of blew up while we were away. Sure, there was hiccups and things like that, but we're only a phone call away. And now with messaging apps, it's you can be anywhere in the world, and you can still run a business as if you are right there. And so we thought, let's do it again. And then we did it again and we're like, let's keep doing this. And so we sat down and we basically planned out our life. So we were going to do 2 months work, 1 month off, 2 months on, 1 month off, 2 months on, 1 month off. And we've basically been doing that now for, almost 2 decades. We started when our son was born. He turns 18 this year. And we've been to 85 countries as a family. And we've had hundreds and hundreds of incredible experiences. I don't say that to brag or boast, but I just want to be an example to people of a different way of building a business. There's not that kind of like you have to work 80, 100 hours a week indefinitely. Yes, there's a period of hard work in any business to get it up and running and off the ground. But if you think about what's the purpose of a business, it's yes, of course, you need to make money, but the purpose of business is to give you a bigger life and not to suck the life out of you. And so we realized the fact that, our kids are only going to be small for a certain period of time. And this is going to be our chance to create as many experiences as we could with our kids before they kind of grow up. So that's something that we put in place. And other than those couple of years of COVID where we were kind of locked in our own borders, we've just been having the most amazing, wonderful experiences with our kids and running our business, kind of in those two months on running our business and then 1 month off traveling with the family.
Your kids must be loving it.
Yeah, for them, it's kind of all they've known, really. So they definitely appreciate it, and they know that it's not kind of like normal. And when they were really little, and I don't say this again to brag because we just use points anyway. The amount of money we kind of run through our credit cards and stuff like that, we have a truckload of points. But just to make it easier, we would fly business class, and they would kind of be up in business class, and then we had to tell them actually this is not how it normally works. And so by the time they were like 11 and 12 and they were able to didn't need our constant kind of care, we're like, okay guys, you're back there. And we stuck them in economy, and that's where they fly now, because it's like took me, I was 32 when I did my first business class flight, because before then I thought it was too too wasteful, and so I said, if you want to be up the front of the plane, you got to earn it. So that's kind of like now up to them to sort of say, look, we'll take you places and stuff like that, but if you want this life for yourself, you got to earn it.
You said you worked really hard for like 8 years. Like, what type of sacrifices did you have to make to buy back your time later?
Yeah, so look, it was, and I've got to be careful when I kind of say this, because yes, there's got to be hard work, and for me, it was. I would wake up in the morning, I'd roll out of bed and I'd just reach for my laptop and I'd walk to my desk and start working. And then I'd mostly be there, 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, still kind of working. I should take breaks here or there, whatever, but pretty much I didn't play. Now I play soccer because I can and I enjoy it. But for 10 years, didn't play much sport, didn't really go much to the gym because I used to be a gymnast. So that was my whole life growing up. And so I'd kind of like, for two reasons. One, I was working hard, but secondly, because I felt like I'd, spent my life in a gym. So I was happy kind of not to, but just work. Thankfully now, and I don't want this, yes, there's going to be a period of hard work, but now we have AI. Now we have the ability to employ staff like in the Philippines. So I'm not saying that you have to sacrifice everything and you have to have no social life and you have to do no exercise and all those type of things. I think that if I was doing it again, I'd be much smarter. Yes, I'd have to still have a strong work ethic, but there are so many smarter, more efficient ways to do things now with the internet speeds that we have, with the ability to access offshore resources, the ability to be able to pay staff, around the world, freelancers in different like lower cost environments. And of course now with what you can do with AI, like I just did a bunch of work on the weekend because I'm developing this new product, and I reckon in the space of 4 hours I did what would be normally a week's worth of work just using AI, like smashing out website copy, autoresponders, the launch kind of like emails, Facebook ads, all of this stuff, which would normally be like a week, like working 12, 14-hour days to get that done. And it's just like, I can't believe just how fast that you can produce work now. So yes, it's hard work, but it's also got to be smart work as well. We don't have to, flog ourselves like we kind of used to
Yeah,
before. We can use tools, technology. We could use offshore resources to be able to do things a whole bunch smarter. One of my mentors said to me once, "Your job is to be the general of the army, not the soldier in the trenches." So yes, you're going to have to work hard, but you also don't need to be doing it all yourself. Now you should be elevating yourself, being the general, coordinating other people to do the work, and using AI as well, and you can be a lot more efficient.
Where's that fine line though? So if you're a founder listening to this and you're trapped in the business, whether you're doing 4 years in the trenches, 6, 8, wherever you're up to, and you're in, like, where can you draw the line early on where you can start to move out a bit, and so you can actually then start to enjoy your life? You're not a glorified employee.
Yeah, so I think that the goal that you want to sort of get to is getting to around $250,000 profit. If you're not there yet, keep hustling. And if you get before you get burnt out, take a break, recharge, because it's a multiple ultra marathons. Running a business is not just a sprint, it's not even a marathon, it's multiple ultra marathons. And so, you do need to take breaks, and maybe just 3 days, 4 days where you're just going to go bush, or you're just going to recharge the batteries or things like that. Otherwise, you can't just sustain yourself working, indefinitely. But you just got to keep going until you are paying all of your bills, all your expenses, all of your staff, and you've got, a big chunk of money sitting in your account, and you go, okay, cool. We're kind of like at the point now whereby we've got surplus, and then I normally recommend you want to build that up to 3 months worth of wages and then 6 months worth of wages. So if the shit hits the fan and you kind of go, okay, I want to at least make sure I can pay all my bills for the next 6 months. And then once you kind of get to that point, then it's like, okay, what do I really want out of this particular business? What am I sort of driving for? And there's two different kind of paths that you can choose. One would be what one of my friends, Dan Priestley, calls it the performance-based business. And a performance-based business is we go, okay, we're going to build this as quick and as hard and as fast as we can, and so we can sell it for a multiple. So you strap yourself in for 5 or 10 years and you grow it as big and as hard and as fast as you can, sacrifice as much stuff as you can along the way to sort of build it up. So you're making, I don't know, say $2, $3, $4, $5 million in EBITDA. At that particular point, even at a 5 times multiple, you might be looking at a $25 to $35 million exit. And that is definitely a path that you can choose, but it takes a lot of sacrifice, a lot of hard work, and it's a very competitive, cutthroat environment. And your business could fail anywhere along the way with disruption, with technology, with government regulations. Who knows? So that's kind of really risky. The other path is what can loosely be called as like a lifestyle business. And you basically take the approach to say, look, I'm not building an empire that I'm necessarily going to sell. Maybe I will sell it in 10 years' time. But really, the business is there to serve me and my family to maximize lifestyle. And so I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to do the minimum amount of work possible to maintain and to grow at a steady pace, but it's not going to be at a cracking pace. I'm not trying to grow, 50, 100% a year on year. If I can grow 5%, 10%, 20%, I'm happy with that. So I don't want to go backwards because that's uncomfortable for everybody if you start having to, lay staff off and things like that. But I'm not trying to set any records. I'm just trying to make as much, not money, but lifestyle memories as I can along the way. And what I'm going to do instead of my big payday and exit, I'm going to be taking, 100, 200, 300, whatever you can make off the table and put it into other income producing assets that will compound over time. So after 10, 15, 20 years, just the capital, the growth that you're going to have on that portfolio of stock, shares, and other businesses will basically mean you're done. So you're going to get your exit in a different way through building other income-producing assets. It's not as glamorous as selling your business for $30 million, but retiring on $30 million worth of assets, it's not sexy, but it's wonderful because you've had all of these experiences along the way as well. And if you follow the philosophy of Bill Perkins from his book, Die With Zero, he has this quote in the book, you retire on your memories. At the end of the day, money's just, a number sitting in an account. What you really retire on is all the experiences that you've had with the people that you love. And so it comes down to your sort of personal philosophy of what type of game you're playing, and be honest with yourself about which one is right for you, and then go for it.
you obviously deal and have dealt with a lot of business owners across, I'm assuming, like all industries.
All industries, yeah.
Like, do you feel like a lot of them are trapped in the business and actually want to get out, like as a collective?
Totally. Like a lot of them are trapped in the business. Some, got there because it was like a family obligation, and that is you're really taking on someone else's kind of legacy. And there's a whole stories I've got around that. Then there's other people that get into business because they're good at something, but they're not necessarily, in love with it. It's just that they had a talent for a certain kind of thing and sort of like fell into it. And then some people get to the point whereby they've probably worked too hard for too long, that they're just broken. They're just jaded. They're just kind of like, I'm done, because they maybe hadn't taken those rests and the pit stops and stuff like that along the way. So I think a lot of people do want to get out, and some people even just come up to me and sort of say, like, I just want this, like, I want to get rid of this business. But I'm like, sometimes you got to grow with everyone wishes they had someone else's life, and I wish I had your business, and I wish I had your hair, I wish I had your whatever, but you can't live someone else's life. You can't live in anyone else's body. You got this business for a reason, and it is what it is. So let's just like do something with it. We're either gonna grow it and make the most of it, or we're going to prepare it perhaps for sale, and maybe you are done with it and you want to do something else, but we can't just let it kind of evaporate. We've got to do something with it. So the next most responsible thing to do is let's lock in for 6 months or 12 months, and we're going to put the right sort of systems and protocols and things in place to prepare the business for sale. And then so we're not just like walking away with, some people they're 10, sometimes 20 years of their blood, sweat and tears, and they just go, I'm done. And I'm like, well, that's irresponsible. Just walk away and it goes to zero, or you just kind of like gift it to someone else who's then going to take it and kind of like run with it. You've done all this hard work. Either we need to fix this business so you're running it, not the other way around, not it's running you, or we need to prepare it for sale, and we need to get out with some reward for all of our effort, and then we go on to build our next thing after you've had a bit of a break and you want to figure out what you want to do next.
From what I understand, you've been really diligent around, you talked earlier, taking money off the table and investing in asset classes.
Yes.
You've obviously done a lot of that with property.
Yeah.
Do you also find a lot of business owners are like also just uneducated around like taking money off the table? Like, what are we doing? We're doing Bitcoin, we're doing managed funds, are we doing shares? What are we doing?
Totally. A lot of business owners are good at, just say, making money, which is what you do in business, but very poor money managers, generally speaking. And so if they have it in their bank account, they'll kind of like spend it either back in their business on dumb stuff, and it's kind of unnecessary. It's like it's there, so I'll hire another person here, or it's there, so I'll move into a bigger office, or it's there, and so I'll kind of put it into some marketing agency. And all those might be good things to do, but sometimes people just spend money because it's kind of like there in their bank account, and 50% of the stuff that you do in business works, 50% doesn't work. So they're taking half of their money and they're just flushing it down the toilet, and they may not really even realize it. So my philosophy around business is, look, business is risky. You never know what's around the corner. You never know whether it's, going to be, a GFC, a pandemic, some type of, nuclear threat. There's heaps of crazy stuff happening in the world right now. And so the most responsible thing to do is to take a percentage of your profits, whatever you kind of agree, whether it's some people it's going to be as little as 10%, some people it might be 20, 30, 40, up to 50%. And I'm going to put it into other income producing assets and basically take money off the table and to diversify. And if you do that consistently for 10 years or perhaps 15 years, depending on the size of your business, and you invest kind of like then you'll get to a point whereby you'll be making more money from your investments than what you will be from your actual business. And then that becomes kind of an interesting thing, and it's a different conversation to have. But I think that's what we've done. And looking back, I'm so glad that we did make that decision, because I think just investing back into your business is like, doubling down at the casino, just putting your chips back on the table. You got to kind of know, all right, enough's enough. If you're up by 20%, probably time to cash in your chips and just, call it a night. But if you just keep going and going and going, eventually every person, will come unstuck at some point.
It's an interesting perspective, because I've just heard so often, just always that you just reinvest in the business. You got, cash in bank, reinvest, grow the business, whether it's employ more staff or invest in systems or technology, whatever it is. But it's interesting, like not many people are thinking, okay, I'm going to get like 10% profit or 40 or whatever, and I'm going to start using that capital to allocate into other strategic investments. And you're right, like if you get it right, like your business is just a cash flow vehicle to support all of it.
Yeah, exactly. So my philosophy has been you're making money in business and you're storing in other income producing assets. Unless you're playing going back to that performance game.
Yeah.
I just want to go hard and fast and keep reinvesting. But there is a lot of risks, in that because you could do that for 5, 10, 15 years and then all of a sudden a lawsuit wipes you out, And so what's it all for? Now, let's hope those things don't happen. But there's always a risk, when you're kind of in business. And so I've just been more of the build a business for lifestyle and take money off the table and put it into other assets. And just, if you want to play that game of the big exit down the track, you need to make sure that you're in a business where acquisitions are common and you get to a certain size whereby you become, a target for a larger, ideally like private equity or publicly listed company to want to buy you. And that really only happens when you, are at about $5 million of EBITDA. And so it takes a lot of work to get a business to that and a lot of sort of sacrifices. And, if you're young and single, or perhaps you're an empty nester and you've got, no responsibilities and you just want to go for it, fantastic. I think it's a wonderful thing to do. But, for us, our business journey fell straight on top of, raising 2 kids. And I didn't want to be that father that was kind of like never there, that by the time they grew up, I was sitting on this huge pile of cash and just like, okay, guys, I'm ready to spend time with you. And all of a sudden they're like, see you, Dad. The whole cats in the cradle sort of type thing. I didn't want to have that be the story of my life. So, and this is interesting because sometimes it's always the grass is greener, or you wish what you didn't kind of like you don't have type thing. So I was kind of going, I wish I would have spent, because my business could have been 3 or 5 times larger than what it is today. Like it's still a good business, but it could have been much larger if for the last 15 years all I did was sat on my computer all day and worked. But I wouldn't have had all of these wonderful experiences that I can never get back again while the children are that particular, age.
Yeah.
And so, I really have no regrets. I think I did the right thing by sacrificing growth at all costs to go, I'm going to build a really good lifestyle business and then I'm going to take money off the table and put it into other assets.
Do you have any rules or systems around protecting your time? Because I'm sure a lot of people reach out to you, a lot of opportunities come past your desk and you're trying to maintain this lifestyle business, this freedom-based business. And it's like, I'm assuming, a lot of distractions come up. And so what do you do to kind of just keep diligent around, sticking to your schedule?
Yeah, so from a high level, every October, latest November, I plan out the next sort of 12 months and basically follows 2 months on, 1 month off, and more specifically, sell the work, do the work, have a month off, sell the work, do the work, have a month off. So I have normally, and I've kind of cut back on some of this now, but I used to do 4 tours or road shows each year. That's where I did my client acquisition. So I'd batch all of that together. And then the next month would be me delivering to my clients. So I'd run 4 live conferences and events for all of my clients and then have a month off. So just by doing that, when opportunities are kind of coming my way, first of all, if it's someone that just wants my time, I'd just be going, look, I'd love to help you, but come along to my next roadshow because I can't spend, half an hour. People are like, I just want to pick your brains. It's like, look, I'd love to come along to my next event. So that's good that I had an outlet like that. And then also it's a case of, as much as I want to try and help everybody, it's like, look, if you're not at least in my program, I'm not going to be able to go out of my way to kind of help you. And maybe if there's someone that's young in their teens or 20s, I'll, kind of go out of my way. But, I can't stop every time, there's a crisis that someone sort of needs my help. So when they're in my program, I've got this 2 hours that I put aside every single week where any of my clients can call up and whatever issue they can sort of talk to me. So it's like, you can talk to me at any time, but it's on a Wednesday at 2:00. That's it. And so all my clients know that I'm accessible in that window of time, almost no matter where I am anywhere in the world. There might be one in every 6 or 7 weeks where I'm on a plane and I can't do it, and it's in the calendar, so people kind of know, oh, Dale can't do this one. But otherwise, every Wednesday at that particular time, I'm available to my clients. So that makes it super easy because I'm there. And even though a lot of my clients have my mobile number, they respect my time and they know that if I want to talk to Dale, that's when he's available. I'll talk to him then. Or I'm going to be at the next conference in, 2 months' time, and I'm there at the back of the room, or I'm at the bar. Come up and see me anytime. I don't kind of like I make myself available as much as I can for my clients when I'm there. But then they also kind of know that I'm away for a month. And if there's an emergency, they can reach out to me.
Yeah.
But most people are going to go, oh, Dale's traveling. I'll leave him alone for a month and I'll talk to him when he's back. So it kind of like, I've just put up some sort of rules around what I, who I will and won't sort of like talk to. And thankfully, most people respect it.
Yeah. Seems like you got it pretty dialed in. I want to talk business blueprint.
Yep.
So that launched 09.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to do some digging pre-09.
Yeah.
I couldn't find much. So I was actually curious around like what you're up to. I did read somewhere, I think that did you write some books?
Yeah.
But I was just curious like what you're up to like in terms of, your career.
Sure. So I'll do the kind of like summary version of just the highlights, and then we can go deeper on anything if you like. So, grew up and had a lot of energy as a kid. So my mum thought, what am I going to do with this kid? Because I never was diagnosed, but probably ADHD or, whatever other labels, because I was wild. So my mum said, I'm going to put him into gymnastics when I was 6 years old. Okay. So I could just jump around for 2 hours and get rid of all my energy. And then by the age of 9, I made the state squad. And that meant that training sort of like went up from like 3-4 hours a week to, by the age of 11, I was training 36 hours a week in the gym on top of going to school. So it was 2 hours every morning, 4 hours after, 2 hours before school, 4 hours after school, like 6 days a week. So it was very intense, but I learned so many lessons like hard work, discipline, delayed gratification, all of the sort of like skills of entrepreneurship, but just in a different form. Then when I finished school, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I sort of decided to take a gap year, and then found myself going to personal development courses. And so I went along to a number of courses. Basically any guru that came to town back then, it was like Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, Tony Robbins, Brandon Bays, Wayne Dyer, Deepak Chopra, Louise Hay, anyone that was kind of like some guru that came, I would go along to their events. And then what was where I got inspired to start my first business is when I was there, I had all these people coming up to me saying, how old are you? And I'd say, I'm 18 or 17 or whatever. And they said, wow, if only I had this information when I was your age, I wonder where I'd be today. And so I heard that more than 100 times. And then that's when I thought, wouldn't it be cool if there was a program out there that taught all of this like life skills, goal setting, leadership, communication, money management, all of these skills to young people. That would be really cool. So I left school for 6 months. I then basically was in a job, and then I thought to myself, everyone's just moving sort of too slow. I want to do my own thing. And the idea that kind of came to me, what about if I did like Tony Robbins for teenagers? And so I started a company called Empower You with a guy that I went to school with. And that was the first business. We ran that together for around 5 years, and we expanded it into 5 different countries. And it basically was a weekend course called Empower You. And the cool thing is it's still running. We started in 2001 and it's still running to this day. So we're almost 20 years that it's been running. But after 5 years, my life changed. I got married and we were preparing to start a family. And I thought, it's a great business. I loved it, super passionate about it. But there's barely enough income profit for one person, let alone 2 people. And it's okay when you're 21 to live off 50 grand a year, but that's not going to kind of cut it with, a wife and, 2 kids. And so that's when I thought, okay, I need to be more commercial. So I then had another idea, which was basically to go into publishing books. And so I went along to this event with a guy called Mark Victor Hansen, who created a series of books called the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. And he sort of came up with this kind of idea, don't think book series. So I came up with this book series, which was basically the advice that I was giving young people was there's two different ways to live your life. One's through trial and error, the other's through following a recipe. And so what you should do is go out and find successful people, interview them, find out their secrets, and basically apply it to your own life. But people would say, oh, it's hard. I don't know what questions to ask. So I thought, okay, what about if I was to go out there and do all the interviews? So I came up with this concept called the Secrets Exposed series, where I'd take different topic areas and I'd find 15 or 16 people that were super achievers in that particular field, interview them and put them together in a book. So we released 2 books in 2005, 2 books in 2006, and then we released 11 books in 2007. So that was 15 books in the space of 3 years. We sold around 250,000 copies, and that helped me to generate about $1.5 million. And I think I was 25, 26 at the time.
It should have been a lot of money.
Which is a lot of money.
Yeah.
That was just in income. So of course we had bills and wages and stuff like that. But that was my first business, which was actually, okay, this is kind of like working. And the first sort of like whereby we started to go, okay, we need to start, following this. And then from there, so I created all these books. And then for about a year, people were asking me, how do you write books? And so I came up with this brand called Get Published Secrets, which was basically teaching other people how to write and publish books and teaching people how to put their books onto Amazon. This is in the early days before, anyone else started to do it. And so I did well out of that, made, a couple $100,000 doing that for 12 months. And then after that, I had people, what I realized was doing a book was great, but I'd help all these people write a book and they go kind of like, now what? Because if you don't put a marketing plan together, then the book's just going to sit there and do nothing. And so it's not really the book itself, it's what comes after the book and the business that you build around it. So then the next step was to go, okay, why are people writing a book? Well, it's really to build their profile. And then I thought, what are the other ways to build profile? And I came up with 8 other ways to build profile, such as generating media exposure. At the time, social media, which was really new. This is 2007, 2008. Then also like public speaking was another kind of pillar. And so I came up with these kind of 8 pillars, and book publishing was kind of one of them. And I put it into a 4-day kind of like intensive that I ran. It was called Profile Accelerator.
Like live intensive?
Yeah, live intensive. So I'd basically do this roadshow and sort of, I call it like Propel Your Profile. It's basically personal branding before there was sort of such a thing, how to build your personal brand. So I did that, and that was really good. That made, a couple of $1 million from doing that. And then from there, people were like, we don't want this to end, what's next? And so then I kind of like, and I was starting to attract people which were like, can you help me with my business as well? And because one of the things that was, I suppose, unique about my positioning at the time was I started my first business when I was like 19. I was born in 1981, so I was the first generation to grow up with computers in their home and in their classroom. So computers, technology kind of just made sense because I kind of grew up with them. And so within a few months of starting my business, I thought I'd need to build a website. So I taught myself basic HTML, and at the time we didn't have WordPress, so it was like Dreamweaver. And so built a website. And then a few months after that, there was this guy that was showing you, this seemed like it's going to total date me now, but to put an audio file on a website. That we could click a button and the website would talk to you, not video yet because that was too hard because the internet speeds were so slow, but having audio on a website was like magical, like the website computer talking to you. And then also setting up like a basic CRM system, having an email newsletter. Also, I started selling like ebooks and stuff like that online. And so people in the early 2000s were getting, email autoresponders. They thought that it was me sending all of the emails, People are like, they were like, oh, this amazing email you sent out yesterday. I was like, what email was that? And like, oh, the one about this. And I was like, oh, that's just one of the 20 emails in my sequence or whatever. But it was like magic. And so at the same time, what was happening in the business world is that the internet went from this kind of like thing that some people were experimenting with to becoming, was in that cusp of going mainstream. And the way that people were advertising up until that point in time was primarily through the yellow pages. Like marketing was pretty simple. You ran an ad in the yellow pages and the phone would just ring. I remember my dad's business, every year he'd sign off the yellow pages thing, and then every day he'd get 5 or 6 calls, jobs booked in. That was his whole business essentially, and maybe a bit through word of mouth. But then everything sort of changed with things like all of these websites and SEO, and then Google AdWords, and then Facebook advertising, YouTube, and that's the kind of modern world that we live in now. And so I was getting all these calls with people saying, how are you doing this email newsletter? How are you doing this, like taking money or payments online, basically e-commerce? How are you doing this stuff? So I said, okay, I'm going to run an event just to kind of get these people off my back. And I called it the New Rules of Business. And it was why the Yellow Pages is dead and what to do instead. That was my tagline.
It's nice.
And it just went off. Like I was having,
good hook.
Yeah, a good hook. And I was 26, 27 at the time. And most of the people were in the room were 40, 50 and 60. And I was like, this is a bit weird. And I was like the business coach. And like, why are these people coming to me for advice? And the reason is because they all realized that the world had changed, and that the people that they used to go to for their advice was their accountant and their lawyer, which are even more backwards than what they are. And they had no idea. It was like the blind leading the blind. So they needed a 26-year-old to teach them how to run their business in the new digital age. So I wouldn't talk to them about, how to read financial statements and blah, blah, blah. That's stuff that they can talk to other people about. I was teaching them about how to actually build a database and how to acquire leads and how to nurture leads and how to, build a web page, how to build a landing page, how to do split testing on a landing page, all this type of stuff. And they just were like, wow, this is amazing. It was like I was like David Copperfield doing all these magic tricks up on stage. I'd show them how to do these things, and we'd run events where I'd build a landing page and we'd be getting like opt-ins by the end of the event. And I was like, and they're like, wow, this is really cool. So it just took off. That was basically the story from 18 to my first business, to then publishing all these books, which did really well, and then leverage that to teach people how to write in books, then build profile, and then basically it just became a full-blown business program. And so I called it Business Blueprint, and we started off with like 12 clients, and now we hover around 500 clients at any point in time. Some clients just do a year in my program. Other clients have been with me for 16 years. Every single year, they've basically been there in the program. And it started off as help you to build your business, which it certainly still is, but it's really become this most amazing community of like-minded entrepreneurs that love hanging out, spending time with each other. So we now, not only do we run really cool business events with amazing speakers and successful entrepreneurs training, and we do like a whole bunch of stuff, got this amazing library, and we've got software and some really cool things, but we also hang out and do life together. So we've gone to Italy, we've gone to Egypt, we've done heaps of charity events in Thailand, but we've been to the Philippines multiple times, Fiji, Queenstown. So we mix business and pleasure and fun along the way.
That's awesome. I couldn't find any of that shit online.
I need to do a better job at talking about my past.
That was cool. So you've never been employed by someone?
I was employed by my dad.
Okay.
He ran a small business.
Okay.
So like from 9 years of age, he would kind of come out with me and he'd give me pocket money and stuff like that. So but then when I was 15, I did have a job doing basic customer service at my local kind of like I do gymnastics in Homebush, and then there was the Sydney International Aquatic Centre where I'd kind of work behind the desk. So a few jobs, but then I lasted after I finished school. I lasted about 6 months, and then was like, no, I'm going to go into my own business. So I never actually ever put together a resume.
Yeah, because super entrepreneurial.
Yeah,
parents,
super entrepreneurial. Like, wasn't one of those kids that was like trading basketball cards as a kid or anything like that. Like, but I was always, because of my sporting background, always a hard worker, and always like had, this mindset of, if you're going to be doing something, why wouldn't you do it to the best of your abilities? And why wouldn't you maximize your time to serve the most amount of people? Like, I'd be working in like, customer service, and people would be like waiting for the clock to go on their lunch break.
Yeah.
Or how can we look busy so we don't have to serve customers? And I just couldn't understand the mindset of people trying to not do a good job. And I just felt that most people were like trying to get out of doing work. And I just thought they're just moving way too slow. So that's when I basically said, okay, if I'm going to get ahead, I gotta like run my own show. And that's where I basically said, okay, I'm gonna start a business, and then that way I'm kind of in control of my own future, and then I can move at whatever pace that I want to move at, and not have to move at the pace of everyone else.
At what point did you realize that Business Blueprint wasn't just this idea. It was something that's going to be a lot bigger, and you're going to become like a category leader.
Yeah. So, you just, when you kind of know when you know, because up until then, business sometimes feels like either you're pushing a boulder up a hill, and sometimes you can be doing that for 10 years. Like, just like everything that I'm doing is taking all this work. Like I'm putting out, 10 units of energy, and I'm getting 5 units of energy back.
Yeah.
And it's just like, this is constant drain and struggle. And I feel depleted kind of at the end of every day. So you're putting out 10, you're getting 5 back. You're putting out 10, you're getting 5 back. And then eventually you get to the point whereby that boulder hits like the crest of the hill, and you're putting out 1, and you're getting 1 back. And it's like, oh, that was easier, and I got some rewards. And then all of a sudden that boulder then goes down the other side of the hill, and you put out 1 unit of energy, and you get like 5 back. And you're like, whoa, like it really hits you, because finally something, is working, because we spend so much of our time overestimating what we're going to do, and we constantly are underperforming. I think Tony Robbins says oftentimes you'll underachieve the goals that you set in 1 year or 5 years, or sometimes even 10 years, but you'll overachieve the goals that you set, in 10 or 15 kind of years. And so there gets that sort of tipping point whereby you just kind of know, whoa, this is kind of working. And you just feel it, because people are just responding. People are saying, kind of yes, way more than they're saying no. And then you kind of like, okay, like, and I kind of went to the point where I was dabbling in a few other things. Like I had a real estate company, and I had a PR company, just little things on the side that I was doing. But it's like, if you've got, 10 lines in the water if you're fishing, and all of a sudden you've got 1 big fish, then it's like, get in all the other lines, put them to the side, and just focus on reeling this 1 big sort of like fish in. So one of the businesses I sold, one I just gave to a friend, and one I just shut down. And then I was like, okay, I got to go all in on this thing, because it's working, but it's going to require a lot more of my time, energy, and attention. So I'm going to just kind of go for it and see what I could do. And then so, for the next 5-6 years, we worked really, really hard to build Business Blueprint, but we'd already had set that rhythm of, it was hard work within constraints of 2 months on, 1 month off. And that enabled me to work really hard, because I always knew that I was 60 days away from having a month off, maximum. So I could kind of work hard. And every time I was like, oh man, don't know how long I can do. Is the breaks coming? A break's coming. Just keep going, keep going, keep going. So part of that forced sabbaticals, holidays, time off, whatever you want to call it, meant that I was able to work really hard and sustain myself for an extended period of time. And one of the things that I believe is, you don't have to be a big shot, just a little shot that keeps shooting. Meaning, if you're just consistent over 10, 15 years, you don't have to be that person that's, in BRW rich list 1 year and then crashed and burned the next year and kind of like files for bankruptcy. Just be consistent over a long period of time. Protect your reputation at all costs, because that's the one thing that you can, is your, is going to be with you forever. And just be consistent over a long period of time. And if you do enough of the right things compounded over time, you'll win. And so, that's basically the Blueprint journey, which has sort of been 16 years this year of running that particular business. And, it's made really good money, but it's also helped me to raise my kids and travel, and build a business that, has enabled us to have this kind of really cool, great experiences along the way as well.
So when you launched Business Blueprint in 2009, at that, let's talk about even 2010. Was there any other like training and coaching businesses for small businesses that was going on? Like, were you the first to market? Were you like dominant?
Yeah, so back in the 2000s, there was a guy who'd done really well. Even before him, a guy who is a really beautiful man and now a close friend, a guy called Paul Dunn. He sort of really pioneered business coaching in Australia. This is in the 90s. He was one of the first, and he had some people that worked for him at the time. One of them was a guy called Brad Sugars. Okay. And Brad Sugars worked with Paul Dunn and learnt the kind of this kind of whole new emerging category, which is called business coaching, which didn't really kind of exist. Before then, you'd go to your accountant for accounting advice, but there was really no one to go to for just general kind of business advice, or sort of around marketing and sales. So, there was a few books that were out there, but nothing really very detailed or prescriptive, and there was not a lot of content on the internet back then. So in the late 90s, early 2000s, Brad Sugars did an amazing job basically taking the concept of business coaching, which was relatively unknown, and making it a thing. He kind of really was, the first to really break through and take business coaching to the masses. But then, I don't know exactly what year it was, but let's just say 2003, 4, 5, somewhere in there, he decided that he wanted to expand his business globally and relocated to Las Vegas. And that became his new kind of global headquarters, and he went on to kind of conquer America and then the world. So that kind of left a bit of a vacuum of not really any kind of like single person that was a dominant brand in the business coaching sort of like space. And I thought about going into one-on-one coaching, but then the idea of just doing one-on-one meant that I could only help a certain number of kind of people. So I kind of was the first to really move into the one-to-many sort of like model. How do you coach 100, 200, 300, even 500 people now at the same time? How do you give people a transformational experience at scale? And that's really what I think I've done probably better than anyone else.
If you were to build business blueprint again from scratch, what would you do differently?
So if I was starting now, if I went back, I'd probably do a very similar thing. But starting now, in fact, I'm looking at thinking about how do I go to America with what I have. See, it's kind of the complete opposite thing to do, because if what I do, which is not good business advice, but I do everything for everyone at every size, right? So I help all different, there's not one industry. People are like, who do you help? I was like, I help everything from, childcare centers to architecture firms, to, guys that run a yoga studio and Pilates studio, everything, right? So I do everything, or everything, meaning marketing, sales, systems, outsourcing, finance, whatever you kind of need. So it's a bit of a one-stop shop. And that has become a niche onto its own. It's like if you're sick of doing 30, 40, 50 different programs and you just want one place that you can go that gives you the best of everything all in one place with the most amazing community, then this is what it kind of is. But everything for anyone at every size, we've got some clients that are just like making 50 grand a year, and we've got other clients doing $100 million a year, and we've got everything in between. So I've kind of that wouldn't really work if you were starting again today. It'd be the worst advice for someone that wants to be going into any business, do everything for anyone at any size. That would be just silly. And so even me going into America right now, I had to go business blueprint in Australia and New Zealand works because I kind of niche. I started before you needed to niche. Now you have to go, okay, I'm going to do business coaching for tradies or business coaching for chiropractors. And there's hundreds of other coaches now that have gone into all the nooks and crannies of all the different industries. And some of them have built massive businesses, which is absolutely awesome. But for me to go to America now, it wouldn't work. So I've had to kind of like go, okay, I need to pick one target market, one product or service, and then just really focus on that, which is where I'm kind of going to go to next.
Yeah, interesting. I never thought of it like that, where it is now super niche.
Mm-hmm.
And so, have you felt like you've lost saturation because if you've got, let's say, a tradie that's in your group, they've just now gone to the coach who focuses on tradies? Yeah,
that's definitely happened, and I think that as more and more coaches have emerged, there's more kind of like competition as well. And certainly some people prefer a specialist coach as opposed to a generalist coach. However, where I've still remained, an attractive proposition for people is some people go, I'm part of your program because I want to get information outside of my industry. Like I'm already at the top of my game in my particular industry. And if I just hang around people that are doing what I'm doing, we're all just like doing the same thing.
Yeah.
I am sometimes some of the best ideas is where you get outside influences from like take something from the automotive industry and then you put it into the insurance business. Right. Like they have nothing to do with each other, but sometimes you need outside thinking. Some of the best inventions come from when you go outside of your space and you bring something from the outside in. But then there's also hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different businesses that are so niched that there is no, like, I'm almost like the coach for, if there's maybe a mainstream person, a person that does your industry, that you maybe want to go for it. But there's businesses like, a quantity surveying company, and there's no business coaching company for quantity surveyors sort of type thing. So it's almost like, I'm the kind of the obvious choice for any of those other businesses that don't have a place anywhere else. And the other thing as well that we've done is built this amazing community as well. And because of our size and scale, we're able to attract like world-class speakers, like guys like, Mike Michalowicz, and we've had Brad Sugars and Paul Dunn and Christina Carlson, and so many other incredible entrepreneurs that have built like $100 million businesses that a local business coach specializing in a particular industry wouldn't be able to attract or afford, but because of our size and scale, our clients get access to the best of the best.
I want to talk joint ventures.
Yeah.
Because I understand that, you've got your fingers in a few pies.
Yes.
I guess that the interpretation of joint venture, there could be a rev share, could be a profit share. Someone might even categorize it as having equity, whether it vests or you get it up front. Like, I guess for people listening, like, what's your understanding of like a joint venture?
Yeah, totally. So we've got ones that are inside your business. So the word joint venture is kind of like a bit of an umbrella term, or partnership marketing. Some people call it strategic alliances as well. And there's slight differences between the two, but basically it's where two companies kind of come together in order to help each other to grow. And I think if you're an entrepreneur that is trying to grow your business and you haven't got the ability to dump huge amounts of money into advertising, growing through joint ventures or partnerships with someone that is in the same industry as you or sells to the same type of customer, but you're not direct competitors. And so that is awesome. So find someone that already has the clients that you want and do a partnership with them so that they introduce you to their client base. So that is a great way to be able to grow the business that you already have. And the other type of joint ventures are whereby you then, as a business owner, see another opportunity and you kind of go, look, I'm already, operating at 80%, 90% capacity. I don't have the energy or the time to go start a completely new business from scratch and have to run the day-to-day. So rather than me having to now run 2 or 3 or 4 businesses, I can't do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an idea and then find someone that's going to actually run that. Or perhaps this business is already going, but they're lacking some resources that you have. And so what you're then going to do is you're going to go into partnership with that particular person. There's different ways of doing it. One you mentioned is like through a rev share, whereby I'm going to provide all of these things and I'm going to take a percentage of the revenue. So that's basically sort of like top line. And I'm going to provide you with customers, marketing advice, et cetera, et cetera. Or the other way of doing it is where you actually buy equity in the business. So you value the business. If it's a startup, then, it's kind of like, it's just an idea. It's sort of worth nothing. So you don't even have to buy in at that particular point. You just kind of say, okay, we're going to spin up this new company together. You're going to run the day-to-day. And I'm going to basically be like your partner or investor in the business. It could be 50-50, 60-40, 70-30. You come up with a split that kind of works well. You're going to be the person in the day-to-day. So we're going to grow the business till we get to profit. And once we get to profit, you're then going to be paid a salary, but that salary is going to be capped at $150,000 a year maximum. And then anything additional beyond that, we're then going to draw out as dividends. And that will be based on whatever agreement that you have sort of in place as well. So when it comes to like wealth creation, there's 3 different sort of asset classes out there: property, shares, and businesses. But these are businesses that are private. So if they were public business, they'd be classified as shares. So these are private businesses but you don't run the day-to-day. So you have your 1 or 2 businesses that you're actively involved in and you're kind of like running. That's the kind of center sort of piece of your, that's your sun. And then you've got all these planets or satellites around. And one of them is your network of properties or property portfolio, and then share portfolio as well. That could be a combination of low-cost index funds and individual shares that you're going to invest into, depending on what your strategy is. And then you've got another set of businesses that you will spin up over time, and you might go, I'm going to do one of these every 3 or 4 years, or you might get sort of go, this is working, and you there comes a limit to how many of those that you can kind of have and give time and energy to at any point in time. But let's just say over time you might have a portfolio, a business portfolio. We all know what a property portfolio looks like. What about a business portfolio of 5 to 10 companies that you don't run, that you have as investments, and every kind of like week or 2 weeks or every month you sprinkle your magic dust over that particular business. And it's good if they're all in the same niche. So normally I target sort of business services companies, because there's that flywheel effect of one business can promote the next business that can promote the next business, and then they can all kind of benefit from your from your mothership, kind of like supporting them and sending them clients. So yeah, it's not only for me it's fun to have other businesses. It gives me a lot of joy and satisfaction when I help someone else, achieve success and make their first $1 million dollars and things like that. It brings you a lot of joy when you help someone else to do it. But also it's great for diversification, because at the end of the day, if something happens to you or your core business, you haven't got, all your eggs in one basket. You've got lots of other assets to fall back on.
What do you look for in a JV partner specifically?
Yeah, so if I'm going to be, there's two different ways. One is it's already established.
Yeah, let's already established.
Already established. So what I'd be looking for is something that could, like I've got a database of more than 100,000 people, mainly small business owners. So if this product or service can benefit small business owners, then I can send products their way. So that then means that I can add a lot more value and grow that business a lot faster. So I'll look for, but if not, say it was in another niche like, men's sportswear or something along those lines. I'm like, maybe. So I could, like one of the companies that I have small investment in is like a men's skincare company, which is awesome, but it's not like a perfect fit with my sort of like database.
Yeah.
Then the next thing I look for is, like all businesses, recurring revenue. Recurring revenue is kind of like the holy grail of kind of like business, where you can kind of know that a certain amount of money is going to be hitting your bank account every single month. So recurring revenue businesses are awesome. And then it really comes down to, at the end of the day, you can have a good business, but it comes down to the execution and the founder. So you're looking for like a really good, use the analogy of like a horse and a jockey. The horse is the business, but you can have a good horse, but if you've got a bad jockey, they won't win. But if you can have an average horse, but a really good jockey, and they will win, because they just, like, a winner is a winner is a winner. And if you've got a really hungry person that's just wants success, and you got your wisdom and your knowledge and expertise over 10 or 20, 30 years in business and a monster database, and you can give them your wisdom and give them your like marketing leads as well, then amazing things can happen. So it does all come down to having a really good like founder and business partner. It is a little bit like a marriage. At the end of the day, choose your husband or wife carefully, but choose your business partners just as carefully, because if you've got a great partnership, it's like heaven. But if you've working with someone that there's conflict, that's not quite working, then it just is a drag on your time and energy. And at that particular point, you might just go, look, it's just not working. You might have to look at changing the agreement, or them buying you out, or something along those lines, and just kind of like wrapping it up, because there is certain once you have a portfolio of those businesses, it's like anything, right? It's the 80-20 rule. 20% of those businesses will make 80% of the money. So you need to make sure that you're putting your time where it's being, where you're being rewarded.
I love that concept, portfolio of businesses. It's great because, portfolio of property, portfolio of shares, but very rarely, I think, to you, especially me, I'm talking for myself, like stop and think like portfolio of businesses. What's been the most impactful business that you've JV with, an established business where you've just knocked down walls? It's been phenomenal. Like, you're looking back at all these companies that you've been a part of, which one really stands? I know all of them are probably very special, but is there one that stands out?
Yeah. So, and this is where I sort of first saw this as an opportunity, because, to be honest, for the first 10 years of my business journey, I didn't even look at any other opportunities. I was just like, don't talk to me about making money. I'm too busy making money. Like I had my blinkers on and I was just focusing on Business Blueprint. And it was growing well, but it was at the point whereby I didn't realize that I was seeing every person that came through my program as a client, not as a potential future business partner. And so what I would have, if you asked me that question before, what would I do differently if I had a time machine and I went back in the first year of running the business? I would have had some kind of like rules around, investing in other kind of businesses, because there was a company that I was one of the first people to talk about social media back in 2008, 2009, 2010. And one of the guys who came through my program went on to build a business, which is now like one of the top social media like companies in Australia. And it was like, that guy was in my program. Another person as well went through my program, learned Facebook ads, and now he actually runs this massive advertising agency doing Facebook ads. And I was the person that first introduced him to that. And so all these people that I helped, I could have just said, hey, I'd love to help you to grow that business, with me kind of as your partner. And so, but in 2015, there was a guy that came through my program. His name was Cody, and he was a graphic designer. And at the time, he was making $120,000 a year. And he joined the program, and he's like, I need help. And because he was a few years, younger than me, I sort of like took him under my wing, and I started helping him. And I said, look, you're not going to make any money as a graphic designer. Like, if you really want to grow, because I'm like he was making the mistake of doing everything for everyone at every size. So he was doing logos, business cards, brochures, websites, email banners. He was doing everything. I said, if you're having to reinvent the wheel every single time, you can't scale that. You want to create, something once and then sell it 1,000 times, not keep, you're building no equity every time you do like something different. And so I said, you need to pick one target market, one product, one sort of marketing channel for 1 year. Yeah. So I was like, okay. So I said, all the things that you're doing, what are you doing? Doing logos, business cards, websites. So I was like, okay, let's pick one. And he's like, I really like building websites. It's like, great, websites. Every kind of second business needs a better website. So I was like, that's good. And I said, let's pick a target market, because I didn't say sell websites to everyone just yet. And so he's like, I'm into this thing called, this is 2015, sort of like, this is when it was starting to blow up. I'm into this thing called CrossFit. And I was like, okay. CrossFit. So I was like, all right, let's do websites for CrossFit gyms. Now, you couldn't call it CrossFit websites because they had the trademark on the word CrossFit, but there's a thing in CrossFit called WODs, which is workout of the day. And if you're in CrossFit, you know what a WOD is. So we called it WOD sites, and it was basically building websites for CrossFit gyms. That's it. And the first year, he made like 300 grand doing this.
Sick.
And it was like, whoa, this kind of like is working. And it's interesting that you let go of 90% of the stuff that you were doing and just focus on one thing and doing that really well. The first website took him like a month to build. And the second website took him 2 weeks to build. And the third website took him a week to build. And then he was building 2 or 3 websites a week because he just had this flywheel kind of going. And then because he went through my program, he systemized the whole thing, and then he started to employ staff in the Philippines to then build up those websites, and then he just focused just on the selling, and then he had his team doing all the building, and they were, he'd basically, okay, got a new client, he'd like fill out a form, they'd start the build, and then 7 days later it would come back, and he would just check it, and then basically deliver it to the client. And so we then scaled up to doing one website a month, to then one website every 2 weeks, one website every week. And then I said to him, and blew his mind, I said, we've got to get this thing up to a website a day. And he was like, whoa, how do we do that? And this is the benefit of having like a mentor, like pushing him, because he would have been happy with 2 or 3 websites a month because that's what everyone else did. But I was just always challenging him, going, you can do more, you can do more. And so anyway, the next year he made like 600,000 or something like that. And that's when I said to him, hey, that business that I'm helping you to build? Because I was like taking time, like giving him a lot more support than I should be. I'd like to invest in it. And he's like, okay, well, look, I'm going like somewhere where I have never been before, and you've obviously been there and done it. And so we valued the business, and I bought into the business, and we then grew it to about $1 million in revenue, and then we started to diversify into other other types of websites. So not just CrossFit gyms, but then we started to build ones for tennis clubs and churches and different kind of industries. And I had lots of clients that needed website help. So I sent them all to that company. So that company was called Lightning Sites, and it grew. And then we basically kept growing, and then we had an offer for that business. And at the same time, actually, so this business was growing. And then we had this, we went from no one to about 60 staff that we had. And most of those staff were in the Philippines. And so Cody came to me with a proposal and said, look, we need to move into this new building because we've outgrown the space that we were in. We were in like an apartment, and then we had 2 apartments and then 3 apartments. And it's like, we don't even have the permits to operate this business. We need to move into a proper space. So we found this building, and it had 20 desks, and then like, or maybe it was like, I think 30, but the whole building was about 100, and we had 60 staff. So the proposal was, if we could rent out one of the floors to friends that wanted space, it would cover the rent of the building. Can we start, can we rent out the space, like a co-working space? I was like, okay, sounds good to me. And so he then spun up this brand called WorkPod, WRKPOD, and that was the kind of brand. It's like a co-working space, similar to like WeWork or something like that. And so he then comes to me after 6 weeks and goes, the space is full. And I said, great, fantastic. Oh, and by the way, people want a second staff member or third staff member, and we've got no space for them. So he's like, there's another building down the road, and I could rent out a floor from there. I said, okay. So anyway, this business started to grow alongside it called WorkPod, which helps Aussie and Kiwi business owners, a lot of them are my clients, to find and hire staff in the Philippines. Yeah. So it then grew and grew and grew and grew. And then we got to about 500 staff that were working in our facilities. And that's when he said to me, look, it's a struggle for me running these 2 businesses. I got a really demanding website development company where we're building 300 or 400 websites a year. And we've got this other company over here. It's really pulling me in 2 different directions, and I kind of need to, something's got to give. And so we made the decision that we were going to basically prepare and then package the website development company for sale. So we did, and we took some money off the table, and we sold that particular company 2 years ago. And then since then, we've put our time into WorkPod, and it's a great relationship. Like, he's in the business sort of day to day, but almost every day, I'm helping him with something behind the scenes, and I'm promoting the company at all of my events and things like that as well. So it's a great partnership. We get along really well. We've been business partners now for almost 10 years. We haven't had one argument or blow up in that period of time. And it's been amazing. So that business now has just hit 1,000 staff that we have, about 7 or 8 different buildings that we now have. Yeah, in the Philippines. And there's an acquisition opportunity potentially for that particular business that I don't know if we'll take or not. And it's just fun. Like, for me, I'm at the sort of point now whereby I make enough money for my core business that it pays all the bills and so I don't have to worry about money. And so, but for me, I just love now doing fun things with fun people and building things. Like, we had this crazy goal that, wouldn't it be amazing if we had 10,000 staff in the Philippines? Like, how would we do that? Do we need to do it? No. But wouldn't it be cool to like figure out how to do that? And let's sort of like have some fun and see what we can do. Because that would make a massive impact, and that would create, 10,000 jobs. That's 10,000 families that are benefiting from that. That's a worthy kind of goal that gets me excited and gets me kind of out of bed. Yes, it will be a good business financially, but now I'm at the point whereby I can just do things that bring me joy, or that are a challenge, or that are fun, and they hopefully, if I do things right, they'll make money as well.
Cody, we're going to need to find some more buildings.
Yes. So I'm going over there in a couple of weeks' time. We're going to be opening another one, and it's great. It's really been good fun. And then I've just built up a few other businesses alongside those as well. And then property, I try to do like one property like investment a year, and then any surplus money we have, we just put into to shares.
So the VA business seems like it makes sense what you were sharing earlier. Like, you've got that 500 people in your
Yeah.
community.
Yep.
A lot of those business owners are going to need VAs.
Yes.
So I'm sure that feeds into WorkPod.
Yes.
Yeah. So I get the cycle that you taught, like how that all works.
Yeah. So what you kind of look at is like, who has your customer before you? Who has your customer after you? Because when you someone comes to you that needs kind of help, you solve a problem for them, but you unknowingly create 3 or 4 other problems for them. Like when someone comes to my program, they go, "Oh, I realize now my website sucks. Like, so I need a new website." Or I realize now that my finances are a mess. I need a good bookkeeper. Or I realize now that I can't do this alone. I'm going to need to get some staff. I want to hire someone in the Philippines, or I need a knowledge management system or a good CRM, whatever. So all of those are businesses that benefit as a result of me existing and doing what I do. And in the past, I would just be going, "Oh, use this company, use this company, use this company." And I've given away millions and millions of dollars to other people, and sometimes you've got nothing back. Sometimes if they're nice, they might go, "Oh, here's some leads for you." And I'm like, "Great." But sometimes they just go, "Thank you very much, Dale." And I became like, this gravy train for all of these other businesses that were kind of like making money off my business. But then at some particular point you go, "Hey, wait a sec, I'm helping you, which is great, but there's got to be a two-way street here." And, so sometimes, I've kind of come up with some affiliate sort of offers with them, or invested in those businesses, just to make sure that there's some type of fair exchange for the work that I'm doing to promote their business.
I can relate to you. I've got about 5,000 paid members in my community, and I've started to do this now, like JV with people. But I feel you, like maybe 4 or 5 years, I just was like, "Hey, I'm just a good bloke. Just
here you go.
Here you go." And after I was like,
yeah,
there must be a better way.
Yeah, it must be a better way. It's great to help people. I've done a lot of helping, and I still help people as well. But I think sometimes, if you're too sort of like, people don't realize the fact, the amount of money that I've spent to build my database and my reputation and things like that. And I was just serving clients up for people on like a platter. And not that that money, it's like, hey, if I'm going to help you to grow your business, then 10%, 20%, whatever it is, should come back, and I'll just put it back into more marketing, kind of like anyway. But it's sort of like you should be covering some of my marketing costs.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you're getting the downstream benefit of that at no cost to you whatsoever. So it's not like I'm taking it and going to the casino. I'm just like taking it and reinvesting it back into my business anyway. So that's the way I see it.
So what I did was after many years of going, what am I doing?
Yeah.
So I've looked at businesses like you. I'm like, hey, I feel like there's a reciprocal exchange. I can add value, like you said, sprinkle some stuff on. But then what I've done is I've created a panel of people who support my members,
Yes.
who like provide products or services that my members need. And they pay a monthly fee. So I'm not taking referral fees or anything like that. It's just a monthly fixed fee. And then they get access to the community, and there's like a cadence and a rhythm of how they speak to the community. That's worked really well.
Yeah, there's got to be something, I think, called the fair exchange. Where I'm happy to help you, but I need to make sure that you're, giving back as well. Otherwise, resentment will kind of grow, and then the relationship will kind of like, not work. And so let's just help each other, and then we can grow together.
Yeah. Dale, I've loved this chat. Been fucking cool, especially learning pre-09, what you're up to.
Yep.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Fuck yeah.